Welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, 3PGC, is a non-profit organisation that is committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles as introduced by Sydney Banks to people throughout the world. Today, our guest is Roan Theron, who is based in Melbourne, Australia. Roan is an entrepreneur, a Three Principles practitioner, a coach, and iheart facilitator. He works with people on their journey of transformation. He works with change workers, bringing the three principles into their practice. And he helps young people uncover their innate resilience and mental well-being. And the topic he'll be sharing with us today is Wellbeing is innate. What does that even mean? Thank you, Roan.
Thanks, Justine, and welcome everyone. Just maybe a little bit of background. I came to this understanding and the principles understanding initially looking for ways to deal with panic attacks. I've had quite a bit of panic attacks, and at stages, a lot of intrusive thoughts started getting into my system and into my thinking. And weird types of thoughts that I didn't know where it came from. It was just there, right? And because I didn't know how to deal with it, I started going and searching for answers. Like I tried to search and find out what's going on with me. I thought something is really, really wrong with me because every time these thoughts were showed up, I was really panicky and didn't really know what to do and what to make of it. I started seeing hypnotherapists, psychotherapist. I started doing EFT, the tapping, the freedom tapping as it's known. I've looked into the Sedona method and eventually started finding some relief in mindfulness. Right, so I started doing some open ground courses and did some mindfulness-based stress reduction, which started pointing me to how powerful thought is and how we attune ourselves and live a life according to what's happening in our thinking and in our thoughts and the constructs we create. And I started becoming a trainer in mindfulness and started to help people because I thought, well, if I can teach this, I must know enough to be able to look after myself, to know what's going on. And as with anything else that I grapple up with, I try to really understand the subject. And one day I saw an audiobook by a guy called Michael Neal from the Inside Out Revolution was the book's name. And I've listened to it whilst I was working. It was in the office, busy working, typing away emails and doing things. And there was something that Michael said, and I didn't know what it was, but it was something there that just left me with a beautiful feeling. And I kept listening. And it must have been probably 6-7 times. And I thought, well, I need to get this guy's book. I need to get a book and go through it page by page and see what it is. And that, like probably a lot of us in this understanding that's new to this, you start watching things, you start listening, you start reading, you just want to absorb and just take in it. It becomes like a monster, you just want to feed it. And over time, I started doing some more work. I wanted to get coached by some of the pioneers. I started reaching out to them. And I did some work with Chantal Burns from a leadership perspective, known as the Conscious Leadership School, which immersed us into a 9-month, almost using this understanding within an organizational context, but starting from the individual and understanding 2 critical things. And one of that is how we experience life, which is inside out, right? And not outside in. Month period is who we really are at our core, right? Who's that spiritual essence, that spiritual being that we are. And when I've seen that essentially simplified this understanding, because I was always someone that always thought, well, this is all intellectual for me. I was always saying to the coaches I'm working with, and that's from Sandy Crott to Keith Blevins to Velda Monroe, Jamie Smart. I just said, look, this is intellectual, I get it, but I don't feel it. And they were always sort of just working and coaching me. And it was never for me a big, massive insight. It was small incremental things, which I started seeing things where it started shifting for me, where I came from one position or one premise and things started looking differently for me. I started getting more reflective and started questioning beliefs. Now that I've seen the inside out experience of life, I started questioning why certain areas still feel so solid, so outside in for me. Right. So I kept exploring, kept being coached, and did quite a lot of work where I really started to see what we're going to talk about today, and that's this innate well-being. And the innate well-being for me is a way to solidify these two insights, these two realizations, one being the inside out experience of life, and the second one of who we really are. And through seeing this innate well-being, I realized that we are built for reality. We are built for what is in front of us. We are probably version how many of the human race have just been evolving through evolution, and we are there now for what's in front of us. When we talk about innate well-being, that is for me an encapsulation of a whole bunch of qualities and things that we feel. And we feel that when we generally drop out of this, what I call misguided thinking, is when we're in that space of consciousness, that space of awareness. I feel love, I feel hope, I feel resilience, I feel confident, I feel wise, right? I'm not caught up in this, what I call misguided thinking. And that is feelings and experiences that is unconditional. So when I say love, that is there's a feeling that is there that's unconditional of people, circumstances, and stuff out there, right? It's an innate quality that's there. So this innate well-being that we are talking about is something that is at a spiritual level that can never be damaged, never be broken, never be stolen or taken away, but is there for us. And that's our core being, that's us as consciousness. Now, well-being as this sort of umbrella term is, for me, that encapsulation of a whole range of good experiences. And as I said, love, resilience, wisdom, peace of mind, all those things, just because. Not because of a certain amount of money in the bank giving me the sense of security, or the lack of that taking away that sense of security, but is that realization that it's there and always there. And although it can get covered up through misguided thinking, and us thinking that things outside of us can give it to us or take it away, I've seen through that, and I've seen when I start dropping out of my thinking, it is still there. It is always there. A good way to talk about well-being for me is the metaphor of the sun. So if we look at the sun is always there, right? Even if it's cloudy, if it's raining, if it is night, it is still there, right? It gets covered up, but as soon as the clouds start parting away, the sun reappears. Right? It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't disappear when it gets overcasted or raining. And also the sun has got some innate qualities. It's got warmth, light, and energy, and the same with well-being. Right? If we have misguided thinking that something outside of us can give us that sense of well-being or take away that sense of well-being, or give me any of these qualities of well-being, the love, the hope, the resilience, security, whatever, or take it away, I have misconstrued this understanding of how life really works, of where well-being comes from. It's almost like And this misguided thinking that something outside of me can give me these qualities of well-being or take it away is us waking up to the fact when we were toddlers. I don't know how many of you had a teddy bear or Suki blanket that we carried around. And we thought that this teddy bear has got some magic power to zap feelings in me. And when it's not there, um, I feel lost. I feel insecure. I don't want to go to kindy because the teddy bear is not there or my blankie is not there. Now we wake up to the fact that it's not true. We realize that it's a stuffed animal with beady eyes, and there's no real life in this. There's no real power. But I guess when we grow up, we start replacing this teddy bear with things like money, with how people respond to me, uh, with what's happening now with COVID, for example. As we start looking for things outside of us to give us this sense, or we think it's where people were born or where they're from, right? If you're from this part of the country, you've got well-being, right? You grew up differently, your circumstances may be different, that's why you have well-being, or you've got this lifestyle or partner. So we, again, attribute it to things outside of us, right? And the mistake, and being human, the mistake we make to look at something external to us is what causes a lot of this misguided thinking. And this misguided thinking, as a lot of you know from a principles perspective, the principle of thought is bringing alive through consciousness that these feelings in me. Now, if the life and the world around me is going to look like something outside of me has got a power to take something away or give me something, I am effectively outsourcing or making my well-being dependent on that thing outside of me. And what I've seen in working with young people and people on the transformation journey, and even change workers incorporating this understanding into their work, is there's generally three categories or three classifications that we make our well-being dependent or conditional upon. And one of them is people. And for a lot of us is the people factor, is how people behave when I show up, how they respond when I engage them, people bullying me, people not acknowledging me, my boss not giving me the credit that I think I deserve is taking away the sense of confidence, or if they do that, is giving me the sense of confidence, right? But there's the people factor and the people around us, which is really, really strong, because as human beings, that engagement is really important. But we mistakenly outsource our well-being and these feelings associated with well-being, and think that people can either give me these things, people can give me a sense of security or confidence or peace of mind, or they can take it away. The second category is places. We think me going on holiday and I'm on the beach at Noosa, that if I'm there, I'm going to have peace of mind. I'm not chilled, I'm relaxed. It's the place, it's the environment, that's where my well-being is from. It's also that if we go into a work environment as well, again, another place, again, this place stressed me out. It's taken away the sense of well-being. My peace of mind is gone because I'm here now. And again, we've made our well-being dependent and conditional upon a place. And what I've seen lastly is things, right? Material things, money. Money is a big thing for a lot of people. If I don't have money, I'm insecure. If I have a certain amount of money, I'll be secure, right? I'll have this peace of mind. I'll have these qualities of well-being. I'll have hope because of this. And you can see how we mistakenly make our spiritual essence dependent on things outside of us. Now, when we do that, we are coming from an illogical place, right? Because what I've seen is we work the other way around. Well-being is innate. right? And irrespective of the circumstances out there, it is still always there. It can get covered up, and it does. And even if you've seen it, for a lot of us, if we've seen it, it still gets covered up. And there's still areas what a lot of the clients that I work with call blind spots. Right? They will say, I get it, but I have this public speaking event that's coming up. And what we do is a number of ways we respond, because we have the thought or the principle of thought bringing this alive for us. We now have the feelings associated with that. But it is because we're coming from a illogical place to it. We think it's that event, that public speaking thing that's zapping feelings into me, right? But it doesn't work that way. It's illogical. And that leaves us with one of two ways. We either try and overcompensate and over-prepare to deal with these feelings, or we try and avoid it, right? And what I found is those areas where we feel stuck, right, is usually because of an experience we've had that was either disappointing, it was either really hurtful, or we felt that we didn't stack up, and we had these expectations about how it's going to go and how we're going to feel, which didn't come true, that didn't realize for us. And because of that, we believe it comes from that, right? It looks like it's coming from there. But again, doing that, we're effectively outsourcing our well-being. We're making it dependent on the event going well. And what I found in my work with clients is that when we start getting reflective, when we start looking at why that is the case, why does it look so real that something outside of me can give me security, or give me peace of mind, or give me hope, or take away these qualities of well-being that I generally feel when I'm my best self. When we get reflective, when we start questioning if that is true, can this thing, this person, this place give me a feeling, or take it away from me? Is it true? Right? Can this public speaking event come from the future in some shape or form and zap a feeling into me? Right? Is it logical or illogical? Can money in my bank account, some way through some type of network, come in and give me security, give me peace of mind? Right? It's illogical. Or if it drops below a certain amount, is now taking that away. As my bank account balance drop, my well-being is going in line, right? It doesn't work like that. But if we think it does, if we have this misguided thinking that that is how life works, that is how well-being works, we are always going to end up feeling stuck. And we're always going to feel victims of our circumstances, of what's happening around us, what's happening in my life, in terms of how people respond, in terms of what I have, my partner, the amount of money, the car I drive, the house I live in, the area, because we mistakenly think it comes from there outside, and not seeing that it is actually built in. It's a default setting. It's factory built in, right? It's there. And the more we start looking and questioning, not just if it's true, but if it's not true, how will the life look to you, right? If it's not the public speaking event or the money that's causing it, why is it happening? And if you've been in the three principles understanding, you will have an understanding of how experience works inside out. And you can see that it is thought that generates the feeling. And we then, as human beings, act accordingly to deal with that feelings, or to make ourselves feel better or feel different, or get that sense of well-being, get these qualities that sit under that umbrella of well-being. And if we cannot get it, we then go and, as I mentioned, overcompensate or avoid it, because that's what we do as humans. So when I do work with my clients, we tend to try and poke holes in that belief system. We try and understand where it comes from and where these blind spots are. And when we've identified them, by reflectively questioning if it's true, is it possible? Are we coming from a logical place to this? What's the premise sitting underneath that? And then flipping it on its head. And let's play with that. Let's say that is true, that this thing called money can give me the feelings. How will I act? How will I think? How will I feel? How will I behave if that's true? We'll work our way through that. And when we've done that, we will then flip it around and say, if that's not true, how will that side of the coin look? So if we take something like money and we think money can give me a sense of security, if that's my thought process, is my thinking will be, what do I need to do to get more of this? Because the more money I have, the more peace of mind I'll have, or the more confidence I'll have, or the more whatever, right? So we make our well-being attached on that. And because we do that, we then take behavior or have behaviors and take actions that's associated with that. So I'll try and work harder. I'll try and save more. I'll take all these actions because of my thinking that resulted in feelings that I'm now taking actions and dealing with. Now, if that's not true, if my well-being or my sense of security or any of those qualities does not come from money, what's the type of thinking I'll have, right? I'll be much more responsive. It won't be as reactive. I'll go, sure, I need money. I need to cover my bills. I've got a lifestyle to live. I need to pay X. I need to do Y. What can I do to sustain that? And I think you'll come from a much more logical place instead of an illogical place that think that my well-being is dependent on it. And I need to get more of this in order to feel better, to feel different. But as you know, from a principles perspective, the thoughts and the principle of thought brings alive this experience through consciousness. But if we come at life from an understanding that well-being is not innate, it's not built in, but it is coming from outside of us, the principles is doing what it's doing. It's bringing alive this experience for us. Now, a lot of you have probably experienced that if I don't stir in that thinking, if I don't splash around in thought, and I leave it, the system will clear it out by itself. Thinking will move on, and the feeling will get extracted and move on as well. And I will drop back into this natural well-being. But if I can keep stirring in it, it's going to keep staying alive. But eventually it will move on, because that's the nature of thought. It keeps moving. But because the premise is still false, because I still think it's coming from outside of me, it's not going to give me any realization, any insight. So by getting reflective, poking holes, asking questions around how valid is this belief that this thing or this someone or something can give me a feeling or take it away. And by poking holes is where we start getting insights, is where the light starts shining through. That's where I start opening the window for the fresh air to start coming through. And even if it's just a crack, every time I go back to that and I question it deep and I question it more, is this true? Is it really how it works? Can this person or this thing give me a feeling of well-being or take it away? That umbrella term of well-being that encapsulates those range of feelings is usually when we drop out of thought. It's usually when I refer to it as when we are best self. That's when we in the flow of thought, it's come in and come out. We're not stuck in it. We're not misguided. And we feel naturally inspired, naturally motivated. We feel this love, this burst of energy, as we refer to it as mind, living us moment to moment to moment. We're not caught up in our thinking that's sort of misguided. And I've seen if we can start distinguishing between well-being innate when we are best self, and when I feel these experiences versus well-being dependent on or conditional upon is a key differentiator for me and a key point to distinguish, which made a lot of sense to me coming to the principles. So the two key insights, as I mentioned initially, where experience come from and who we really are, is what made this understanding for me click. And who we really are is that innate well-being, is that encapsulation of these qualities that's already built into us. But like the sun, it gets covered up. Like the sun, it's innate, it's got innate qualities, but when it's covered up, it doesn't feel like it's there, but it is always there. And as soon as that misguided thinking start dropping away, when thought moves on and moves through the system, we drop back into the pure consciousness, and we're back in our well-being. I think that's probably a good place to stop. I think maybe if we want to open up for questions, comments, and sort of see where we go. But I think let's hear what landed, what didn't land, and yeah, let's go from there.
Thank you, Roan. So if anyone would like to comment or ask a question, you can raise your digital hand if you like, but we're a small group, so you could just probably unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, I'd love to share and make a comment.
Thanks, Peter.
It's what I heard in there and saw more of was that thought is bringing experience to life. Like I saw that even more with what you explained, and that with like an illogical premise, that premise is being brought to life by thought. But what I really heard that you said was when you're dabbling in it, you're kind of stirring it, that it makes it stick around for longer. It doesn't flow. Fresh thinking doesn't come into the system. So I guess what I've seen, and the question would be, it's not necessarily like we get to a place one day where clouds don't come through the system, where an illogical premise comes through the system. And I guess, does it come with time that you see it a bit earlier on, or you see it for what it is, and there's less dabbling in it, so to speak? That's kind of my question, my curiosity around that.
Yeah, Peter, I think, and what I've seen for myself and in my experience, it's not that it's time-based. It is, as you probably know, it is insight-based, right? It is how quickly I can see that it's illogical, that it is the premise that I'm coming from is not logical and doesn't serve me well. So it is almost looking at or coming from a premise that the world is flat, right? Because if we think the world is flat, and I want to go on a voyage, I want to travel from Melbourne to Cape Town, South Africa, and I jump on my boat, I'm going to make sure I've got a hell of an anchor, because if I go off the edge of the world, I'm going to be gone. I'll make sure I have someone out on the deck constantly looking for the edge of the world. I probably won't sail at night, right? Because I would be scared as hell that I'm going to meet the edge and I'm going to drop off. And for me, that is an illogical place. That is coming from an illogical premise, thinking that something or someone can give me any of these qualities or take it away. If I think the world is round, I'm going to have a completely different way going about it. So I still want to go on my voyage, but knowing that I'm safe, I'll probably take different actions because I'm going to have different thinking. I'm not going to be scared of falling off the cliff and having a massive anchor because of dropping off. So I think it is questioning as soon as you get a feelings, because what I found is our feelings is signals, our feelings is clues. And when I feel stuck, if I overthink something, if I feel anxious about something, I know there's an outsource. I know something is not right. I need to start questioning. I need to see why is that the case. And if it is like a public speaking event and something, I start freaking out and becoming anxious, I'll start questioning and try to understand, how is it possible that this event in the future can travel through time and give me this feeling, right? And by getting reflective and questioning if it's true, can this event make me feel that way? No, probably not. Well, what is that? Is it the people in the future? Because what you'll see is it's not here in the present, it's not in the now. And because it's thought in a moment, if I can start looking at the principle of thought taking shape, powering the system and bringing this experience alive for me, and seeing that it's illogical and the premise is false, right? It's not a true logical premise. We now start touching inside, we now start looking at it. And that can be incremental changes, which I think, as you pointed out, can be over time, because every time you get exposed and you question, we're going to try and poke more and more holes through this. And I don't think as humans we'll ever get to that nirvana stage, right? I think we'll have a more gentler life, but I don't think we'll ever get to a state where it's complete. We've got us, right? If you understand what I mean. I think that time base is incremental, but it's more insight based, if I heard you correctly.
You know, that's really, really useful and helpful. And the big thing I heard was getting reflective as well. Just getting reflective rather than analyzing and pushing even harder or pushing more. It's actually the slowdown. Yeah.
Because I find if we don't get reflective, we try and overcompensate. Right? We're trying to deal with this feeling. So I try and over prepare for this public speaking event, or I try and find ways to avoid it. Right? But usually that's based on a previous experience where it was either disappointing or hurtful, or something happened, right? And I somehow now have an attachment to that situation or that circumstance. And because of that, which no longer exists, because it exists in thought, the past is the past. It's something we carried forward and with us through thinking. And that attachment to something outside, but also the relevance of that memory, which is thought-based, is where insights start coming through. Awesome. Thanks for your question, Peter.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, probably speaking similarly to that point, I was talking to, she was actually a friend, she's not really a client, but she hates using the computer, and she was telling me she just gets so worked up and anxious working with a computer. So I sort of challenged her on that, and because I sort of told her about my experience, because I do the same thing sometimes. It's very overwhelming. I've got 15 tabs open and, you know, this, whatever, all the things are happening. So I experience a feeling, but because I understand that this piece of plastic and metal and glass can't generate feelings in my body, like there's no pulley system or anything. It has to be coming from thought. So understanding that it comes from thought, as soon as the feeling rises to a certain level where it grabs my attention, that's usually, I notice that's when I go, oh, my thinking's getting carried away, and I need to sort of just come back and go, or I need to go and have a 5-minute break or something. You know, it's like you said, it's a signal about my thinking. It's not a signal about anything else. And I think, Peter, what I've found is that the more, the deeper you really understand that it's always thought, any kind of uncomfortable feeling is coming from thought, because the present is neutral. It has to be coming from thought. Everything around us is just happening. It's so the more as time goes by and feeling, oh, I thought, feeling, oh, I thought, you know, and with also the understanding that helpful thought will come from mind as well. You can rely on that. So it's not like dismissing it is dangerous. It's not like people say, oh, you're burying your feelings or things like that. It's just like, no, I'm making this up. Come back to the present, and then we can respond to the present rather than reacting to our feelings. That's just extra little bit.
Oh, yeah, that's gold, Sandy. That's spot on. I mean, I've worked with people that belief system that something outside of them is giving them feelings or taking it away, that they find ways to cope with that feelings. And that's where bad habits form as well. They overcompensate again. They go and do stuff to feel better. Because of the fact that they're coming from a logical place or false premise from this understanding, and not knowing that when the thinking quiets down, that natural well-being starts coming up to come to the surface again.
Roan, when you were sharing a little bit about your own story, it seemed like there was a lot of work you put into trying to not feel anxiety and experience panic and so on. And it seemed like when this inside out understanding, there was something easier about it. It sounds like there wasn't so much work. And I'm just wondering if you can speak a bit more to that.
Yeah. And it's just in where it came from. I think it was 2015, 2016, so about 5-6 years ago. And if you don't know, I own a martial arts school as well. I own a Gracie Bar Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I used to be competing at world champion level. So I've got sort of a big history in martial arts. And I was competing on a Saturday, and I remember I used to have all of these rituals. So I needed to listen to specific music, and then I need to do some breathing, some deep sort of breath work, get myself calm, visualize, and just get into that space where I'm effectively ready for combat, if you want to call it that. And I've had a first fight, which I've done all my rituals, and I was about to do that again, and it just looked different for me. Right? I was competing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre, and I could see how these thoughts are coming up about a battle coming up where I'm going to go into the next round to fight. And I can just see thought giving me this feeling of panic that I now needed to deal with. So it was so crystal clear for me how in this environment of IMSAC, where everyone is sort of competing, how thought is generating feeling and how this inside out experience is being generated. And that was probably the shift for me. That was where I was completely in, because I was always thinking, yeah, it's good. It's when we look at the principles, it's a belief system. It's more, but when I saw it for myself, it was just completely different. And I guess the more I started looking for evidence of, is this true? How does it work in my life? I stopped searching for things outside of me, stopped searching for answers, and because I started reading as many books as I could. I started watching as many things I could. And think it was in one of Sid Bang's books. I think it's the Enlightened Gardener, where it's something along those lines. Stop searching because the answers is inside of you. It's always been there. So this frantic search for things outside of me started slowing down, and I started looking for evidence. And I think he also says, go and live your life. Like, go see for yourself. I'm not there to convince you. And it just made life gentler, gentler, gentler. The more I started living life from this space, from looking for evidence and seeing for myself, this is how it works. And as Sandy said, you can see, once you see it, it's there to be seen. Right? It's you can see thought dropping away and feeling goes with it. And you can see thought coming up and feeling coming with it. And that's how the psychological system works. It's bringing this forward alive for us. And I think why a lot of us struggle is because it's invincible, right? And we grow up in a world where we think it's outside in, right? So it looks like it's coming from the outside. It's the people around us and the things around us. And once you see it, we still get caught up. And those areas where we get caught up, I think is where we need to get reflective and see if that's really the case, right? Is it really coming from that thing, from this person, from the place, and really question that? Is this thing or this person able or capable to put a feeling in me or take it away? But life became gentler, much, much more gentler. And the longer I've been in this understanding, and the more I've seen, and the more I've worked with people, it's a complete paradigm shift to what I've experienced versus where I'm now and what I've seen.
Yeah, I think this is really very interesting, and I think it's particularly pertinent at this particular point in time, because I think what we're all finding is that we're being confronted with outside thoughts around us that are being presented to us and thrown at us, and we're being bombarded with them, and just trying to get that sense of knowing that we need to actually control those thoughts and either let them drop away or just experiencing the present moment, I think is probably more important now than ever. So yeah, I find it very, very helpful in this current climate. Yeah.
And Angela, you're right. It's not so much about controlling it. It's more seeing thought for what it is, because it's a mirage. It's vaporware. And unless we go and stir around in it and give it power, it will have feelings associated with that, but then it will drop away. And some new, fresh thinking will take its place. But the longer we hold on to that thinking, the longer it's going to stay in our system, because that's how the psychological system works. It just brings it alive for us, and we experience it. But you're right, especially now is when a lot of people struggle because of a lack of understanding, because they think my liberty is being taken away, because they think things are being imposed on me. And I must admit that this understanding is probably making it for a lot of us much easier to cope with what is here or what is being imposed on us, right? If you want to call it that. Because we can see, and we've seen how the system works and how thought works. And that's not to say thought is a bad thing, right? We're just describing, saying how it works, which empowers you to not be reactive, but more responsive. And I must admit, being human, we still get caught up, right? And there's still areas in my life where I get caught up. But you're quicker to fall out of it. You're quicker to see it for what it is, right? You're quicker to see the thought monster at play and how I'm making up my reality to go, you know what? I'm caught up. I don't need to. I can sit back and just drop out of this. Yeah, Sandy, that's right. Responsibility. Yeah, ability to respond. I like it. It's always so amazing when you're in this understanding, when you get to a point where it just goes quiet and you can just hang out and just be part of life, of mind.
Can I just add one other little thing?
Yeah, go for it.
That I realised it's because when we're little kids and our parents and their parents back through time, they have thought how they feel is coming from us. So they would get frustrated, you know, when we're 1 year old and we can't feed ourselves, or they're late for work, or all that sort of stuff. They get mad at us when we're little because they think their feeling is coming from the little child. And so that's where we learn it from. From very young age, we're taught that how we feel comes from them and how they feel comes from us. And we're really lucky to be part of this time in history where, you know, this understanding is coming out, because then parents even will change their response to their children, or even if they don't, they'll sort of recover more quickly, or, you know,
Yeah.
rather than just reacting to the kids all the time, which is what my parents did. So
And it's really subtle, right? It's I know I've worked with a client that, to give you an example how easy it is to get into that way of thinking. So when she was little, she was drawing pictures, and mom and dad were always, oh, beautiful pictures, right? And of course you're going to feel good, right? Mom and dad praise you, they say beautiful pictures, pat in the back. And the way people respond and react became a big thing for the client. When she started going into the workplace, and that was a thread throughout schooling, that when she started going to the workplace, it became where the boss acknowledged, good work. And when she changed job and the new boss didn't acknowledge, he was at arm's length, whatever work is done, and he didn't give her that sense of, it felt to her that well-being is being taken away, because she's used to this praise, and she's used to people commenting when she walks into the room, people's response, and people looking up, and the way they engage her became a way where it became so part of everyday life that when the person saw that it is an outsource of well-being, that level of confidence, that responses from people are giving me is not coming from them, but it's actually already built in, and that it was misguided, right? It's extremely powerful for someone to see. But it's so subtle that when we grow up, even with our kids and going through life as well, it's how people respond, or this, or money, or and what I find for myself is, one thing someone saying it is for us to go and look for ourselves and see if it's true. And you'll find the areas where it doesn't look true, and it doesn't seem that it's logical, that that thing cannot give me a feeling, or can take it away. That's what I call these blind spots, worth reflecting on, and worth investigating and seeing, why is that the case, and is there something to be seen to loosen that grip. So yeah.
When Sandy mentioned little children, it just kind of brings to mind that for me, it's little children is where I can really easily see that we have innate well-being. You know, like they're just being, and
Yeah.
you know, they have all these, you see all these different expressions and different feelings, and they'll cry because they're uncomfortable, maybe they'll have a tantrum, and then it shifts, and they're just on to the next, you know, they're just settled again in between kind of all the emotion. They're just open and curious and loving. Yeah, so that's what I really see. And of course, we're still those same people. We were those babies, those toddlers. So I think it's still inside of us. So,
Any last questions? Sorry, Justine.
Yeah, no, I was going to say top of the hour. So if there's anything else, yeah, please feel free.
Yeah, I guess what came to mind was with clients that fill their days like working with people in corporate where it's boom, 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 and they never stop. And like you said, Sandy, breathe and take a moment. And I think what I've seen is it fundamentally looks to them as though their well-being is dependent on their day going like that. Therefore, their behavior is a response to that. And that's what I've seen as a result of this. And it's exploring how to educate them in that, rather than telling them how to actually investigate and support them to enter into a reflective space. And what I heard you say was go and look for yourself. So even pointing people in the direction to go and look, I've really seen that from tonight.
Yeah. And the basic question, I think, Peter, in my mind is when we do feel stuck, when we do feel anxious, we overthink, is to start with, is it possible for this thing or this someone to put a feeling in me or take a feeling away? And when I talk about a feeling, I'm referring to these qualities of well-being. I'm talking about, because in my mind, when I'm in my well-being, it's that the feeling of love, just because, right? Unconditional kindness, a feeling of caring, peace of mind, resilience, feeling naturally confident, not because of anything. It's just, right? It's innate, it's built in, motivated, um, feeling wise, feeling capable, right? Having this capacity to show up to life. And a basic question like, do I think this thing or this someone can put any of these qualities in me or take it away is the starting point. Because I think that goes to the heart of the matter of pointing out that it's probably logical because this thing cannot sap a feeling in me. Now, the hard one is people. Because people feel if I'm engaging other people, there's a sense of connection. Right? It's easier for people to see when it comes to places and things as opposed to people. But with that basic question, the next one is, let's compare. If that's true, what's the type of thoughts you're going to have? What's the type of feelings you're going to have if the world were flat? What's the type of actions you're going to take? Cool, let's assess that. Now, what if that's not true? Let's look at the other side of the coin. If that's not true, that this thing or this person or this place can zap a feeling in me or take it away, let's explore that side and let's compare. Right? Which one looks true? Which one looks logical? And if that's still the case, okay, well, was there a previous experience where it was either disappointing, hurtful, or something happened that kept that belief in place, that lodged that? Cool, let's see if we can start poking holes in it. Because then we start looking at previous examples or experiences where that was not a case. If people are stuck in traffic and traffic is driving me crazy, well, there must have been times where you're stuck in traffic and you turn the volume up on the radio and you sit back and you waited for the time to pass until you can get through. So it's not coming from the traffic. Right? So the traffic is not taking away this peace of mind. So then we start looking at examples and try and play around and go with the Play-Doh and see where it takes us. But questioning it, I think, is the best starting base, but poking holes at is where we want to go.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Roan.
Okay.
Thanks, Justine.
Thanks very much, Rowan, and thanks for everyone for participating. It's been lovely to have you here, and looking forward to more 3PGC webinars in a Australian and Asian and New Zealand friendly time.
This is awesome. Thank you, Justine.
Yeah.
Glad you're hosting.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks very
Thanks,
much.
everyone. And
Good
thanks
to
for
see
showing up.
you.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
See you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.